Ooh. Hey everyone, this is Hydra Hut. This is My Hero Academia. Obviously it's a manga by Shonen Jump. This is volume 3. I did reviews on 1 and 2. I honestly wasn't planning on doing one on this, but there's a particular subplot that's addressed in the dialogue that I thought was really interesting, and it's not something that you see covered in a lot of media these days, because everything's kind of being censored and deballed lately. I'm going to try not to go too much into the actual story of this, because it's really not why I'm reviewing it. It's a good story. I don't know if this scene is fully covered in the anime. I've only seen 2 episodes, and it's really got a quick beat compared to the manga, so I'm assuming that they're just going to not address it, which is another reason I wanted to cover it. Anyway, this is by Kohei Hirokoshi. He wrote, drew, all that stuff. One cool thing about these, and I'm pretty sure these are later reprints, I don't know if this showed up in the original, but you get a lot of quotes from Kohei. They give you some sort of insight into the type of person he is. There's no real reason to need to know that, and it doesn't really give you anything as far as the story is concerned, but it's still kind of interesting. This picture is pretty cool and has no purpose in the book. He even makes a joke about it. It's just kind of cool, so check it out. Anyway, another nice thing is you get these their splash pages are short and sweet. You get a reintroduction to the story, a little bit of information about the main primary characters. The rest of them you just get their names because they're not fully developed yet. It's nice. Also really like his art style. It is very much manga style, but it's also very, very clean and easy to discern everything, and well detailed. Still very animated. Solid. So without getting too much into the story, one of the central plots of this whole thing is so if you haven't read any of this or watched any of the anime, I would suggest taking a look at the manga, even if it's not usually your typical genre that you read. A lot of people who haven't read it, they just kind of assume that everything is very pervy. And yeah, there are some that are like that. This is pretty tame, but it's got very solid action, and this whole story is very clearly a love letter to American comics. The author, I haven't looked into his past, so I don't actually know, but just everything about it is very, very obvious that he loves the idea behind caped comics. And that's really what he was going for with this manga, is a cape comic. And that's, I think, why so many people like it. And I would really check it out. Highly recommend it. Central theme is overcoming obstacles, breaking your personal barriers, and also understanding the difference between good and right. I think most medium now is really pressing the idea that evil is in the eye of the beholder. And this really gives us a bit more black and white definition of good versus evil. And it's nice because you don't get a lot of that in these types of mediums anymore. And honestly, that evil is in the eye of the beholder is a bunch of bullshit, and it ruins stories. I understand how reality works. I also understand how you tell a story, and flim-flamming the good and evil is not how you tell a damn story. So the main, these are also cool. Usually they're at the end of the chapter or right near the end of the chapter. He gives us a little character definition. It'll just be some random character that he hasn't really talked about yet. Usually it's worked like a foreshadowing. We finally get introduced to this guy a little bit later. But they just give us some basic information, tell us how he'd like to use him, how he does use him, and honestly gives us a little bit more insight into Kohei. So this guy here he's our main bad guy for this volume. He's not going to be the central bad dude, but he's the one we're really focusing on. And he brought this guy here. Yeah, here we go. Nobu. who was it's basically just like a golem that was specifically designed to defeat All Might. This guy was under the impression that All Might and everybody would be pretty weak, and they also weren't expecting the hero class to be so strong. So they thought they would just come in, kill everybody, and leave. No big deal. It turned out they got a lot more resistance than they were planning. And as their plans fell apart, so did their confidence. The dude with all the hands, he was like having existential breakdowns and throwing a tantrum, which is leading up to the main reason I wanted to do this particular review or talk about this, is once the adults or the full-blown heroes finally show up, finish wrapping everything up and save everybody, albeit All Might did the majority of it, and Deku, they start discussing what happened and discussing the actual villain. And All Might's talking about the way he talked and everything, and how, well, first of all, they had some sort of information that thought All Might would be weaker, and that's what everybody was really focusing on. But All Might was like, no, he was throwing a temper tantrum because it didn't work. We have no record of this guy. They didn't know his name. They couldn't find him in the database. He's very clearly a villain. They start talking about how there's like an uprising in villainous types now, and they had to reject like 79 people, which is twice as many as the year before. And All Might starts throwing around the idea that with more people that are of that type, they're obviously going to migrate towards stronger people of that type, because that's who they respect or fear. And this guy clearly is just a very not this guy. The guy that we were fighting with was like just a natural bad dude. And chances are the villainous people know about him, and that's why they're trying to get into this hero school, is to be more like that guy. And All Might brings up the fact that really what was wrong with the dude is he had no mentor. He had plenty of potential, plenty of power, and he wasn't really malicious. He had no guidance. He had no mentor. And it really points out that a lot of villains and a lot of bad people are like that because they had no role model or father figure in their life. And I really, really, really like that they're pushing that idea in this book, because nowadays, like especially nowadays, they're very heavily trying to break up the nuclear family, trying to push the narrative that you only need one parent, namely a mother, and that a father figure really doesn't matter. But when you look at the statistics and you look at what's going on, boys without dads turn into criminals. Girls without dads usually turn into whores or thoughts of some sort. And no, it's not 100% of the time, but this is about as pervy as this one gets. Yeah. But, anyway, that's mainly the reason I wanted to talk about this, is I really like the fact that they're addressing something that is a statistical fact. And even when you just look at the development of how people work, you need some sort of role model. You need some sort of moral. You can't just be a crazy wild animal that's in it for yourself, or there's no reason to make anything better for everybody else. That's just nature. But anyway, sorry for rambling and being boring and whatnot, but so check this out. It's very good. I've only seen 2 episodes of the anime, so I can't really recommend that. I'd say it is quality with good animation, but definitely read the manga. It is a love letter to American superhero comics, and I think people enjoy it. Hail Hydra, baby.